Dr. Michaels, it's an honor to be sitting here with you today. A very, very interesting chain of events has caused this interview to come to fruition in the first place, all surrounding a technology that you've developed that many call medbed technology because that's really what it emulates in its essence of how it works and what I would call the miracles that it's allowed to come to fruition on many people all around the world. It's a technology that I've seen firsthand dissolve a 12.5-inch cystic fibroid in my aunt's uterus, a technology that has caused TLS to actually encourage me to come and help raise awareness to this incredible healing modality that you've created, but also to help figure out a way to make it more accessible around the world. And what's interesting is that you're actually the first person that I know of that TLS has accepted and agreed to associate with publicly without hiding your identity, which is a very big deal, and I'm sure that it's all for good reason, especially with the what I call technology. I know you have a different way of speaking about it, but it is an incredible technology that I know I am sitting here for a very good reason to help bring out to the world so we can help make more accessible. So with that being said, before we go deeper into what this technology is all about, what we're actually sitting next to as we speak in this interview, can you share a little bit more about your background to create a foundation for those who don't know who you are and the work that you do?
Okay. Yeah, people ask, where did it start? Well, my parents met in engineering physics. My mother, a nuclear physicist, my dad, the aerospace, electrical, mechanical, structural engineer. Met in engineering physics, and oops, I was conceived at Tesla's power plant site, at Niagara Falls, and on their honeymoon, which my mother was not happy about. but she was fissioning plutonium in the labs, Battelle Labs, working on the bomb the whole time she was pregnant with me.
When you say the bomb, are you referring to the nuclear bomb?
Yeah. Working on bomb technologies. And so coming in, I see everything as that combination of engineering and physics. So I see the body that way as a circuitry. And but I thought everybody grew up with my favorite toys, which were Geiger counters and gyroscopes, and healing all the animals on the farm. So I was very blessed in that my parents were both hyper genius. Mensa, I grew up with all the gifts of the Mensa, support for development, and coming in going, my mother was working on the bomb, my dad did stealth bombers and worked on Mach 3, and I'm going, how do we heal? How do we bring healing to the world? How do we heal all of this? And so that was what my quest has been. And I started in chiropractic, reflexology, nutrition, Ayurveda, acupressure, 1971. And so there's that whole background of really focusing on how do we bring healing. But I also studied Rife technology and radionics in the early 70s. And by 1978, I built my first scalar healing light chamber after doing a whole bunch of experiments and research and incorporating materials from NASA and doing a lot of research on photons and importance of biophotonic energy and the importance of standing columnar waves in the scalar. And we were seeing absolute total miracles in 1978, but it was one person at a time. Can't heal the world that way. But we saw reversals of all kinds of things because the power that made the body heals the body. So it's not like my technology is doing the healing. No, the power that made the body heals the body. When the body has the right information, the right energy, it wants to heal everything. The body wants to function perfectly. And so it's just a hyper healthy, energetic environment that we've created, kind of like you recharge your cell phone, but you're recharging every cell of your body with a wireless transmission of energy and dense intentional informational fields combined with the photonics, and because the DNA is biophotonic. But this was a whole download of instruction to create this after being recognized as one of the top healers on the planet, because I'm really a hands-on healer.
Is it safe to say, from what I'm understanding with what you're expressing here about this technology, which we'll dive into in just a second, it's not the technology that's healing you, it's the technology that's creating an environment for you to heal yourself?
That's correct.
Understood. So energy enhancement system is what we're looking at over here. I know this is called the cube, and you have many other ways that you can formulate this in a room with multiple different screens and systems, 16-unit systems, 24-unit systems. For short, I know you call it EES technology, the energy...
EE system.
EE system. Understood. So can you explain a little bit more, before you explain how this thing works, how did it come to you? I mean, this is no joke. You know, when you're seeing people getting healed in an hour, you know, in a few minutes, in a few hours from things that they say are impossible, you need surgery or you're going to die. And we're seeing people step into this room and being changed almost instantaneously. How did something like that come to you? Was it given to you from somebody? Did it come to you through spiritual essence, spiritual ways? How did you bring this to fruition?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, because my mastery is with the body and tracking things cell by cell through the body, and the body has consciousness and the DNA, specifically working with the DNA and the codes of the DNA and the memory and the cell memory, but the DNA. And the DNA is biophotonic. We are bodies of light. In fact, my original work was under body of light, and that's a federal trademark, copyright, etc., from way back to, I think that was finalized in 97 or something like that. Body of light, because we are bodies of light. Prime function of DNA is storage of photons. You know, so I have all the scientific and medical background, but bringing it forward, and I was meditating during a Scorpio eclipse in the early 90s, 92, actually. And I was meditating and going, the clearer your question, the clearer your answer. Ask and you shall receive is a law. And so I was asking, okay, now how do we bring healing to the world? There's only so many people I could personally teach or touch or train. How do we bring healing to the world? And even more specifically, how do we create the quantum leaps of consciousness for accelerated evolution?
Yes.
For a new heaven, a new earth through us. And it was a download of instruction to program technology to emulate my work. As I was already recognized as top healer, people flew in from everywhere. I'd be booked 40 hours straight with sessions, waiting lists of people, because anything and everything would heal, because the body wants to function perfectly. You know, so I used to say I'm like jumper cables. So that's what we created, kind of jumper cables to the body. But we're like jumper cables for, that spark of life, that optimal, light force, literally light force, life force, energy to flow through us and to touch the hearts of every cell, to touch the, because when you activate that light within you, it reminds you who you are, all that you're here for, all that you have access to. And so it's spiritual science. And yes, I can go right down all the rabbit holes of all the actual physics and biophysics and quantum physics and nuclear physics, and so I have all that background and the medical side. And I'm recognized as a doctor of natural medicine besides a biophysicist. And like I said, Mensa, our brains are a little bit different. So I can go right down into all the science, but it's really spiritual. And so I was asked to create this technology to create that quantum leap of consciousness, to bypass some of the projected realities. How do we create that consciousness where you can call forth all the wisdom of what's been held in the DNA? How do you call forth all the wisdom of our ancestors? How do we be here now in the fulfillment of all the prayers, all the promises, all the prophecies of all who have gone before us? and call forth all that wisdom rather than being stuck in any old patterns or programs of old genetic damage even that's been held in the DNA or in the cell memory. How do we call forth the wisdom of all that and be present now, as the fully realized Christed conscious beings to walk the planet in total balance and total awareness of who we are, all that we have access to, and how highly we're connected. So there's a lot of science to that, but it's an embodiment of truth, because it's truth that sets us free. And that's part of how this was developed, is the cells vibrate and resonate with the power of truth.
So, first of all, I love the fact that you bring it all back to the spiritual core of everything, because that's really what everything kind of emerges out of. I think one of the main problems with medicine today, and even science today in the way that we're applying it, is we're only focused on the physical. And people forget that spirit world and the intangible roots that everything emerges from. So I appreciate the fact that you bring that, and I think that that's why this technology came to fruition, because you connected to, call it the wisdom of the ancestors, to source, to light. Everybody has a different name for it, to God. But I do believe that that's why we're sitting here, based on the expression of your explanation. It's coming from a deeper root and not just the surface of physicality. So I want to ask you a question. I'm looking at this thing over here. I see a lot of lights. I see it moving very fast. Some move faster than the rest. Some lights are different colors. How does this thing work?
Well, you could see this as polychromatic therapy, like your ultimate light therapy. There is that aspect to it. And the DNA is biophotonic, of course, as we talk about. But how do you create those quantums of light, the biophotons? Well, that comes through the intersection of fields, phase conjugation, phase conjugate wave pairs, where you have the collision of fields, which creates an implosion and a release of charge. So it creates a torsion field, or a tube torus torsion field, your scalar vortex. And that combination then with the light is how we're interfacing with the body, because the DNA, the whole, everything is in that torsion field, or that scalar vortex, which has been called the secret of life, right?
Correct.
But also with the light and dense intentional informational fields. So it's a combination of it's a whole layering of things, and you're seeing it in its Fibonacci sequences, your golden mean, but it's creates the Fibonacci sequences has to do, I was told specifically to incorporate that, because everything in the body is based on that Fibonacci sequence, or the golden mean, which but the specific for that is to activate and mobilize the body's the body's stem cells, which are because it's activating and mobilizing the body's own cellular replication patterns. And it's designed to interface with the DNA. If you look at it, if you can kind of see it, we're kind of close to it, but it's like 12 strands of DNA. It's designed to be specifically emulating 12 strands of DNA to activate all the latent capabilities of our DNA. That's not junk DNA.
So can you say that this can actually work to activate certain strands or aspects of your DNA?
Yes. And if I put it to a black background, it looks precisely, specifically like out of the Genome Project. Even though I developed this to interface with the DNA way before I ever saw any of those screens from the Genome Project.
Very interesting. What kinds of things have you seen done with this technology healing-wise?
Oh gosh, we're very blessed. We've literally seen anything and everything heal. The body wants to heal. We've had people literally sent for hospice. I think I showed you a picture of a general Did I show you that?
I don't think so.
We can maybe show that.
Oh, yes, with the burns?
Yes, the third-degree burns over his whole body, 3 strokes, 77 years old. He was sent to hospice by the VA. And I said, just get him here, get him to me. He had total paralysis, both sides. No bladder control, no bowel control. Everybody thought he was dead. I mean, he looked dead, but they brought him in, I carried him in. They brought him for 4 hours a day. And I showed you the picture after 10 days where he's standing. And
It looked much better.
yeah, and brought him back to life. And he was able to fulfill and go back and complete and accomplish some of the things that he really wanted to accomplish before and that was 77. I think he passed when he was 82. But amazing, amazing man, amazing story, and I told you some of that, and just fascinating stuff. And another example of stroke, for example, Dr. Dream, Mark Peebler, he had a double stroke. I sent him a message, just get here and get to an EE system ASAP after a double stroke. Well, he got here. He ended up coming here about 3 weeks after his stroke. It took about 45 minutes for him to come in that door and make it to the system. He could not, and this was with a walker and 2 people helping him, he could not stand at all without falling down. After 2 hours, though, he walked unassisted from over 100 feet, unassisted both ways, without touching anything intentionally. And he's doing fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so we've seen just crazy miracles. We love miracles, but it's just, the power that made the body heals the body, really. And this is like, how do you plug the body back into that cosmic light socket? Universal, unlimited power on, and that's your light force energy.
I know you can go on with stories endlessly of the things that you've seen, even from the conversations that you and I have had off camera. But I want to ask you a difficult question that I'm sure a lot of people are asking. If this works the way that we're saying that it works, and it creates the miracles that we're seeing in many people all around the world, how hasn't it been destroyed? Coincidentally.
Yeah, I'm very highly protected, but there have been many, many attempts on my life. I mean, let's be real. But I'm also very highly protected because of the high level of beings that have our technology.
Can you speak more about that?
Special forces, for example, but admirals and generals, and that so it's been very highly protected in those ways as well. And also, it was initially I only let it out to private homes. That's why now about 90% of the systems are actually in private homes. And actually, one of the initial systems that went out to a student of mine who was studying with me, studying healing. I'm recognized as a kahuna in Hawaii, and he was studying healing with me, and it went out to him, and he introduced himself at our first training in Hawaii that I did with him as a Wall Street tycoon, but he was part of the Rothschild family. So he actually, one of the first systems went to him.
So what you're saying is there are elites in the world that are using this technology.
Yes. And they want to heal from all their own abuse and trauma as well. The first full system was finally installed in Golden, Colorado in 1996. And so there's a history from there of that we can talk about as far as who showed up because it creates we're colliding photons like CERN or Fermi Labs, creating photonic fusion. So it's a cold fusion type event.
Okay. I know you had an experience, something having to do with NASA, DEFCON. Can you share that?
Yeah, I guess we can.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
And yeah, very, very interesting, because next thing you know, there were ships overhead when I finally got a full system set up, and black helicopters, because this was near NORAD, things like that. And then actually somebody from NASA was sent to find out what we were doing, because it showed up like the signature of a nuclear sub on land. So it ended up, so I was told that, well, I was told this fairly recently by the person that sent NASA to us, that there were actually 300 men in hazmat suits that surrounded us. I said, I didn't see that many, really. I didn't see all those. I saw some. But anyway, we ended up putting a system down in Houston.
Okay.
And I would get briefings from NASA as they were studying the effects of the technology. And part of the research that was done was studying the effects on the DNA. And again, I designed this specifically to interface with the DNA. So studying the effects on the DNA was the top geneticist out of Baylor University. And they found that it was repairing all the breaks in the DNA, all the genetic damage, but all the DNA, because it's designed specifically to put the DNA back to its original divine matrix. I like to say we have designer genes. And how do you put the DNA back to its original design? So it's designed to intentionally put the DNA back to its original design. They found it was repairing all the damage, all the breaks in the DNA, and lengthening the telomeres. So that's true age reversal. Nobody knew what telomeres were. Nobody was talking about that back in the late 90s, but that's true age reversal.
I understand the longer they are, the longer you live.
That's correct.
So there's a direct correlation.
Lots more research on that. And shortened telomeres creates shortened life. You see shortened telomeres, for example, with cancer. But this is going to try to lengthen the telomeres, which are like the end caps of the DNA, or it's the end caps, like a shoestring, or I talk about, this is a scalar wave here. It's really good for hair, and lengthening it grows super fast.
I need that.
Hair grows in thick and fast and things like that. But the ends don't split because it's a unified, cohesive, coherent, unified field effect. But also it's because of the collision of the photons creates, a fusion type event, which creates hydrobifurcation, which is a release of the active oxygen. So you've got like your ultimate oxygen therapy. So you see the cells, the red blood cells, perfectly, totally oxygenated, which is really important, especially in what we've been dealing with lately, how the cells stay totally oxygenated and free-flowing. But so you got the active oxygen. Now some of the physicists I've worked with found that's 5 or 6 molecules of active oxygen and active hydrogen. Now the active hydrogen, that's your pH, it's your hydrogen potential, or the power of hydrogen. But it's the active hydrogen then that can repair the covalent hydrogen bonds in the DNA. It's putting the DNA back to its original unified. Because what radiation does, now understand, I know radiation literally from the inside out with my mother, right?
Okay.
I mean, I came in extreme radiation poisoning myself. And that's what we're all dealing with now, is radiation poisoning. Radiation unzips the DNA, breaks those bonds.
Okay, when it comes to radiation,
put it back and repair those bonds.
What about this? How does this not emit any negative radiative effects?
And it's been tested and tested and tested every which way, and it's that, because that's a great question. Because of the phase conjugation, it creates a 0-point technology, and it creates a nullification of all detrimental and destructive fields. And that null zone effect, one of the president of the Biophysics Association, but he was a top researcher for the Pentagon, was sent to meet me, and brought a $100,000 oscilloscope. And you can actually watch that video on YouTube.
When was this?
Oh gosh, that's a number of years ago. John Orava. And he brought that very specialized oscilloscope, but he's explaining what he's seeing and what it means. And it's showing that total nullification of the detrimental field effects, but also that's a total transmutation of all detrimental and destructive fields into beneficial, beneficial energy. And it's not just this or that frequency, it's spanning a full spectrum, because that's how the body works. And with a predominance in the, because we did a lot of brain research. He was considered the top brain researcher in the world. And then there's a predominance in the ideal optimal brain states, which has to do with the Schumann resonance. There's a predominance in the Schumann resonance and the 14 or so CPS, which is your cycles per second, which is the the energy found in a virgin rainforest, for example, and that kind of thing. And then some of the research we did was very, very interesting, because I have more than 30-some years of research in right-left brain synchronization. So that's very, very important to healing, because as long as there's brain dominance, there's constant imbalance, there's struggle. That's fright, flight, or fight. Constant compensation for imbalance. Right brain dominance or left brain dominance. We'd like to clear some of those domination issues and those power struggles on this planet. We just want to be in love, male and female in balance and unified. Unified, it's a good term. We want to come together, right? And that release of charge is that oneness with that organic love of creator and creation coming together within us. So that balance of right and left brain hemispheres creates your ideal whole brain thinking, your genius states, but activating, opening up all the neurotransmitters. It's like being on drugs with no drugs, because it's oxygenating the brain. It's a natural high. Yep. Antidepressant effects, things like that, because people come out feeling very happy, and that was a significant piece in our initial clinicals that were done in 2001. With Dr. Victor Marcial Vega did the initial clinicals, 132 patient study. So people can read that on the research page. But he's an oncologist, so how many people come out of a cancer clinic feeling happy? That had never happened. But it creates those ideal optimal brain states. So some of that research was that you could go to a deeper meditational state than a Tibetan monk in 7 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, accelerated evolution. You have to teach people how to meditate. So I tell everybody to say all their prayers and focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Visualize, that's visualization, but the power of prayer. And thank the body for functioning so perfectly, because you're literally breathing light to every cell and every part of yourself.
That's unbelievable.
Letting every cell know and remember the power of the truth, of the love, of our being here. So that's what that consciousness is about. So it's very, very interesting. But he explains it on the scientific side, and then we've worked with so many doctors and scientists, and like I said, the initial clinicals, 2001, and it goes on from there.
That's beautiful. So I understand, which is obvious at this point, the level of protection that you have on your life, on everything that you're building, on what you're doing. How do we ensure that this remains protected when you're no longer here?
Well, it can't stop. It's like a snowball. The Great Awakening will not be stopped. I have been promised that. I was also promised a few things coming in. And I'm here to teach kind of physical immortality. You could call this immortality medicine. Yeah. Infinity, everybody wants to know, how long does a charge last? This is nonlinear, non-Hertzian, fifth-dimensional standing column or waves beyond relative time and space. They're transdimensional, interdimensional.
Yep.
And it's that 0 point energy. But how long does infinity last? It's like an infinitely projected Mobius. That's a way to understand the scalar vortex.
Okay.
And then we talked about that null zone. It goes out 2.2 miles every direction. This is industrial strength scalar.
This goes 2.2 miles out in terms of its effect.
That's the measured null zone, yes.
So you could pretty much protect an entire neyborhood.
Yeah, so it's about how do we create healthy communities? Because we have to come together.
Wow.
And create communion, but we have to come together and be the greater community. So the benefit for the community is a nullification of the detrimental field effects. The hyper-healthy energy, the DNA is biophotonic, so it's in the room. The scalar goes through the walls, the photons don't. And your photons are your quantums of light. DNA, prime function of DNA, and this is Fritz Albert Pop's work, another biophysicist, but prime function of DNA, according to him, is the storage of photons. Yeah. And DNA is biophotonic. And so what we're literally doing, the core of the DNA, is the light from the stars. So you see that infinity wave, when it's applied to the body, allows a spiraling into the double helix of the DNA to kind of wipe all the slates clean with the light, and activate the light at the core of the DNA, which is the light from the stars.
Wow.
We are stardust.
You know what this is? This is physical, spiritual technology.
Yes.
It bridged the two worlds. Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and keeping the love, keeping the light, letting go of everything. That's that cellular memory erase in a sense. Letting go of anything and everything that no longer serves your greatest life, your greatest light, your highest purpose, your highest potential.